talk a little bit about filtering. I'm going to leave the distortion on because the distortion creates more harmonics to give you a more complete, more full signal. So when you kick in something like a wah pedal, you have a lot more to it. Now that's the Morley power wah. So. This actually has such an extreme sweep that I'm kind of sweeping the 3 dB point sub-audible at this point, right? It's a very, very brutal, over-the-top pedal, which, you know, I kind of like. Comparing that, I have the DoD FX17, which these are kind of two very different wahs. The Morley, like I said, you can see the light glowing there. That's the light bulb. And then if you look at the pedal here, you see that rod connected to the pedal? That moves the felt. If you look through the hole in the top of the pedal here, you'll see the felt moving. And that controls the CDS sound. The FX17 actually is kind of interesting. You see this metal piece here? This uses a variable capacitor. Do you know what an air cap is? You know, an air cap is what old radios used to tune the frequency. It was 2 parallel plates, and you could keep them far apart, or you could put them together, and you change the capacitance. That's what the DoD does. So it uses a variable capacitor. So again, instead of that that rack and pinion pop control, people have tried coming out with alternatives. And the Morley was pretty old in the 70s. They already started coming out with the photo sensor, and over the years they changed it to be an LED-based system, and it affected the physical implementation of the pot too. Once they went from the light bulb to LED, they could go from AC power to battery. I mean, this plugs into the wall for about 110. And then the variable capacitor, you know, on this, again, is another way of eliminating that pop. Because the problem with the pot in the traditional wah is it gets static, like any pot. So the DoD has a very kind of snippy sound. And you know, it's a different flavor. You know, neither one of these can really emulate a crybaby. The DoD actually has some control. It's kind of interesting. It's actually 3 pedals in one. You can also set it to be a volume pedal. A lot of Morleys do this as well, where they'll operate as volume pedals when they're not a wah. The battery-powered slimline that works like that. The problem here is that if you're watching my foot, I'm not getting much at all from the first travel. And what it is there are basically 2 trim pots in there. That there are multiple sections of this pedal. The first is the part that works with that variable capacitor and derives a control voltage from it. And you can actually get that control voltage out. There's a 5-volt out, and you can use that on an analog synthesizer. So you can use it as a controller pedal to get a 0 to 5-volt sweep based on your foot. But then you can set the minimum, I think the minimum level, so basically what it's at heel down, and then you can set the width, so how high it goes after that. And those values are handy, but the only downside is what sounds good as a volume setting doesn't work well as a wah setting. So you got to tweak them for one or the other. So you know, the solution is to have multiple FX17s. And you know, the funny thing with the FX17 is one of these things that it's like the Dow Jones. The price is constantly going up and down on eBay, except the volatility is even greater. So if you want one, wait and watch. Right now might be a good time because the Dow Jones is doing so poorly. But you know, you can find them relatively cheap, or you can wait and people pay close to $100 sometimes. It's crazy. Okay, so that's, those are the wah pedals, so I think that's all I need for things on the floor. Okay, now, more scratching this. What I'm going to do is get out of, I'd like to do now, throw in some other ones. I got the parametric EQ I was mentioning. That's a nice little pedal. Alright, where did sorry, apologize for scratching this. So, with the parametric EQ, I can turn up the boost. And I can adjust the frequency. And then I can also make it very narrow. So that's a very narrow, or I can make it very wide. That changes just a bit. There's wide. And then you can also cut. So then your narrow cut, that's cutting, just sweeping a notch down. And then if you want, you can set it up like a wah and do like it's a wah pedal. Alright, so that's a parametric EQ. Let's see if we have any other phase. Alright, we're going to go to the phaser. We'll do that one later. Alright, so the other, the last probably filter based device. Oh, actually, here's a phaser. And I can do it. So that's a fast phaser, kind of go for it. And then I can actually use the feedback on it. No point even doing it, of course. Yeah, a UFO sound. Or you can slow the speed down. Turn off distortion. Let's set it and filter this band pass. So it has a way you can set the resonance is kind of setting the cue. You set the sensitivity determines what. Sensitivity is one of these knobs. It's hard to remember which one operates which because some of them operate where high sensitivity means a low input signal will kick it on. It's highly sensitive. Sometimes it means the opposite.